The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
I will say that I put this long sleeve shirt on just because it's a little cold, but I was going to wear my tie-dye shirt, and had I known,
there you go, very on brand, Dan.
Exactly.
The house, tie-dye bill.
All right, I might as well start. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Winemakers. I'm John Myers with Brian Casey, Bart Hansen, Sam Couturi, and our special guest today, Dan Kosta. Wow, this is cool. I like it.
The crack of a bottle.
Absolutely, founder and president of Convene. Oh, let's turn that up. There we go. Nice pour. Thank you, Sam.
It's a breakfast pour.
Breakfast rosé.
What do we? Oh, that is that's a Convene. Excellent. What a way to start.
Yeah, where are we here? March.
They left the wine
March
bag.
something. We just released this wine.
We're
so like this week.
As this comes out, it'll be officially spring. We're days as we record.
The 22nd or something like that, right?
A week from true spring.
Yeah.
From the equinox feels like.
The question is, has the sap been fooled into going back down, or is the sap still coming up?
There is a winery in Sonoma that sent out a bud break email today, and my thought was that was somebody in the marketing department actually in the vineyard, or was that just a regularly scheduled marketing email on the calendar? Hey, it's March. Tuesday, March, whatever.
Rinse and repeat, right? Bud
break email.
Right. The bud break, but it's funny, the sun was shining.
Yeah, the sun was shining brightly, and
I thought I was in Mexico this last week. So that's why my nose is peeling. Can you see that on the mic? I definitely had the reports of, little cotton balls out there.
We are basically at 12 and 12, light and dark. Things should start happening no matter what, the atmospheric rivers say.
Yeah. It's this year, I hate to say this, but this year I'm very fearful of frost. I just, just the way the weather has acted this year. Hopefully I think it's like 55 degrees outside right now at 11 o'clock, but so hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah. It's definitely, late and weird, and it's one of those winters that seems like it might not end. So there could definitely be some cold April and May mornings.
Yeah. Well, the good news is we have enough water to turn on the sprinklers.
That's true.
If you're into that thing. Yeah.
Well, you got a vineyard out towards the coast, though, that you're sourcing from too, so that might be a little cooler out there. Huh?
Well, it's at you're talking about the Campbell Ranch, and that's at about 1,000 feet. So I have a ranch in Mendocino, and I think we're at about 2,000 feet, like north of Redwood Valley, almost to Willits. We got a foot of snow up there. So I know that snow's different from frost. I would almost rather have snow. Right?
Well, it actually insulates. When I was talking to people from Walla Walla, we were talking about how we're not used to seeing the vines covered in snow, and they said actually it insulates because it keeps everything basically the same temperature.
Well, that's what frost protection is too, right?
Yeah, I think that if it snowed on young vine growth, that you'd be pretty. Can
you believe we're talking about this right now?
Any experience with this ever happening?
You're not from the Finger Lakes,
but I think you'd be fucked. I'm pretty sure that snow on young vine growth would be just as.
Those little tender growth that the wind will knock off.
Yeah, if you have 3 inches of snow sitting on first leaf, you'd be pretty screwed. It might even be worse than frost,
right?
Because it just break it right off.
And thank God we're not on our first leaf. We're on about 20.
Okay, fair enough.
But Brian, to your comment, like the stuff out of the coast, it's up high and it's by the coast, so hopefully it's getting some air movement and stuff. To frost, it's got to be still.
Yeah, frost is not normally that big of an issue out there. You're really dealing with like the low. For us, obviously, we make Pinot Noir from Sonoma Coast and Russian River. Frost in the Russian River, that's where you get it.
down in those little pockets.
Yeah, exactly. So that cold air just kind of sinks down to those low areas, and it's like, oh shit. Those so it's interesting though when you do, and you know this, Sam, but like when you get those frost years, you could have a vineyard that it only affects the low areas and some of the higher areas it's fine, and then it's just a matter of a couple of degrees.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a matter of whether the fan went off at the right time or you got out there in time and the sprinklers were all working and it
and that's if you have that shit out there,
if you
right?
have it,
yeah. So.
Well, that's been the Frost Hour today on the Winemakers podcast.
No kidding. Well, it's
goes well with
Jose. Right?
Yeah. Well, and Dan, you're known for, some things, primarily Pinot Noir. I mean, people think of Dan Kosta and they think of Pinot and Kosta Browne, but actually, I think the first wine that you commercially released was a vineyard designate Sauvignon Blanc from Lake County, and I'm kind of interested. You got any more of that laying
around?
Your homework?
What the hell?
You got any sitting in the cellar somewhere?
What's the name of the vineyard?
Oh God, I don't know.
Romagear. From the beautiful shores of Clear Lake. Yes. So who the hell does? People are doing single vineyard.
I mean, that was a winery also.
Yeah,
Romagear was a winery at one point.
Kelseyville.
Yeah.
So how did that exactly come about? And how did that transition?
Oh my God! So we made our first wine in 1997. We didn't know what the hell we were doing, but it was good. It was we made a barrel of Pinot Noir. While we were, when I say we, Michael Brown and I, we were working at John Ash and Company in Santa Rosa, and we made a half a ton of fruit, and it was pretty good. I always say, yeah, it was Pinot Noir. I think it was Pinot Noir. It looked like Pinot Noir.
Where did
it could have been Beaujolais. It came from Everett Ridge. Actually, we got it from Everett Ridge, which is now like Flanagan, I think.
And, remember the guy from Everett Ridge?
No, but I remember Flanagan.
Okay, well, so Everett Ridge, that was the guy that originally had what is the Hamels vineyard up at the top of Nelligan.
Oh,
Jack Eyre.
Yeah. So we didn't get the fruit from that property, but we got it from them. It was evidently off of East Side Road, probably, over by Rodney Strong. Yeah. But anyway, we made a half a ton of fruit. It was good. We just shared it with people at the restaurant, and we were encouraged by the feedback. And so we didn't start Kosta Browne officially until 1999, Brian. And this is where we get back to, okay, we want to make a business out of this thing. We would like to. We kept working at John Ash, of course, but what's we called it Chateau Cash Flow, right? You can't do that with Pinot, but you certainly can with stainless steel tanks and how many tons? Oh my God, we made 3,000 cases that year. I mean, I didn't know what that meant. I was like 3,000. So that's not.
There
that
might
much.
Still be some left for you, Brian.
Yeah, well, it kind of looks like the Pinot Noir now. But yeah, we made it was Lake County Sauvignon Blanc, and of course, we were in the kind of in the path. Remember back then, the big player in Lake County was Geyser Peak. So I think it was California Sauvignon Blanc. It was very good for like $9 or something like that. We were charging $13. So how do you compete with that? So Brian, you're bringing back some some interesting stories about. We did get started with Sauvignon Blanc. Our first love was always Pinot, but in order to make, we were collecting tips, to get the winery going, and even back then, Pinot Noir was $3,500 a ton.
But there wasn't a lot of it. I mean, not as much as there is now, right? But
there was, because no one wanted it. So we actually, the timing was good in 2000 when we got back into making Pinot Noir. We got a cone vineyard. There's a lot of cones out there in Napa and everywhere else, but this is now owned by Joe Anderson from Bonovia Winery. And so we got some cone vineyard, which was made famous by William Selliam. And we were lucky enough to John Farrington, who's since passed, from Farrington Vineyards up in Mendocino. Yeah, he got us that fruit. So we made about 180 cases of it, and that was it. Off to the races with Pinot Noir,
and that first vintage was where?
Where
you made it? Yeah, where you made it? Where?
You know where Ramsgate is now?
Yeah,
that used to be Roche Winery.
Right.
I should probably leave it at that. Ramsgate is very nice. Yeah. So they raised Roche Winery to put Ramsgate in, and but it was. That was tough back then because we were a couple of young guys who were in the restaurant business. We weren't in the wine business, so I mean the fruit came in at 9:00 at night. So we're sitting down there by Sears Point and Finian, and it's just foggy and windy, and it was just miserable. Waiting all day for this fruit to come from Lake County. But
were you like the last stop as they were delivering grapes or something?
Well, who the hell gets Lake County fruit delivered to South Sonoma County, right?
I worked at Kenwood, and we used to get quite a bit of Sauvignon Blanc from Lake County, and it was all the mechanically harvested stuff was always there at 5 a.m. It was great, but you're right. Anything that came, hand picked was there in a set of doubles, and it looked mechanically picked by the time it got to you because it had ridden down on the truck. It was just
dude, yeah, exactly. It was probably already started fermenting.
Right. Natural fermentation. See?
Yeah. That's how we got started. But yeah, that is how we got started, and it's very helpful when you make some bad wines because that's how you learn how to make good wines, right? And I'm not saying that those wines were bad. I really liked them, but we were lucky enough to have a quiet learning curve until about 2003. Then it wasn't quiet anymore. When Wine Spectator kind of picked us up and did a story on us, and ever since then we were kind of in a fishbowl. But I would hesitate that we weren't really ready for it.
So what was it that you guys were drinking then? What were your goals? Who were your gatekeepers? Who were you targeting?
Well, first of all, I'm fourth generation Sonoma County. Santa Rosa specifically. My dad is from Healdsburg, working in the Russian River Valley. My dad was an airline pilot, so he brought back. When I was a kid, he would bring back Pinot Noirs from Burgundy. I mean, DRCs. So, I'm 51 now, but so we're talking about 45 years ago when you could actually get DRCs, right? Or for a reasonable price, actually. Right. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth on, it was always Pinot Noir. So I was always drinking Pinot Noir. Brian, you alluded to the fact that, there wasn't that many, there were Pinot vines, but there weren't that many good Pinot Noirs being produced in Sonoma County.
So where was all that fruit going then?
Corbel.
Yeah. I mean, again, that was Corbel, and Corbel did sparkling with it, and Kenwood grew a very large Pinot program very, very quickly, and it was BTG pricing because Gary owned everything. Gary and Jim Ledbetter owned everything, and it was farmed for tonnage, and just farmed.
Yeah. Mike Lee made some Pinot Noir out of Kenwood.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. That was when Mike was the winemaker at that time, and that was but Mike grew that program, and then when he left, then Corbel seemed to destroy it, but
right. And then if you remember too, Russian River wasn't Russian River back then. Right. It was, the good wines, let's call it the 80s, and we'll get into the 90s here in a second, but the 80s was all about Carneros,
right?
For Pinot Noir, Sainsbury, and that's my recollection of it. And then when you started, and this is the really roundabout answer to your question, when professionally, the Russian River did start, booming in the 90s. So Joe Swan, Dalinger, William Selliam, Rocchioli, right. Gary Farrell, to a certain extent. A lot of people thought that, like Kosta Browne was like this groundbreaking. We didn't invent anything. We had a lot of guys ahead of us that were very inspirational. I mentioned them. I'm probably missing a couple of them, but those were certainly the guys.
Sorry, but you guys were you were coming out a different way because other people were either winemakers or they were grape growers, and you guys were somms. Like, what do these guys know about making wine?
Well, isn't that the way now?
You know about drinking wine.
It's like, Brian, when are you going to start making wine, dude?
He did it. I already have.
You already have, I know.
And we just had Patrick Cappiello on the show last week. So, yeah, it seems to you know, but that's the new model, is that you don't have to own anything. If you can go to a crush pad facility and
I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still doing the Kosta Browne model, and as I'm sure all your listeners know, I mean, we sold Kosta Browne, and so you know, my kids are going to college, or you know, we're comfortable, everything's good, but the model still works to not have to, you know, do this huge capital expenditure when you're dealing. And Sam, you know this. When you're dealing with really good growers, let the growers be the growers, and we'll make the wine. And there's crossover, of course, you know, like with Campbell Ranch, we lease it, we don't own it, and there's aspirations to own, but the model works. You know, the wine industry is very hard, especially when it comes to, you know, like cash flow, and so to put out that capital outlay, it's a lot of work. You know, growing wine is a totally different business than making wine, even though they have to come together as a business model. They're just totally different.
Totally.
Yeah.
That was one of the questions I wanted to ask, though, is because, and you just mentioned aspirations of owning. So if you did want to purchase a vineyard, what area would you look at?
Well, you know, I think that goes back to the whole vision of what this Convene
Lake County
Winery
Sauvignon
is.
Blanc.
Yeah,
Lake County. Actually, that's not terribly cheap anymore either.
Sauvignon Blanc all of a sudden is like the hottest fucking
Dude,
grape.
you
Like,
can't get it now.
Yeah.
You can't get it. And it's interesting because I don't drink a lot of Sauvignon Blanc anymore. Well, I do like Sancerre. You know, I like that style, or even Bordeaux with a little Semillon in it. But I'm not crazy about the very overly perfumed stuff. Anyway, that's just another discussion. But Convene and everything that we're doing now after 25 plus years in the business, it's a learning curve. It's still a learning curve. You're always going to be on that curve. And my point in the journey is tension and intellectual approaches to winemaking. And Sam, I'll be, you know, diving in a little bit into more organics. I'm not huge on biodynamics. I can be. I love the fact that when something is biodynamic, it means that people are paying attention. So I love that.
That's totally the most important piece of biodynamics is a way. It means you're listening and paying attention to the farming and the farm and the land in a way that even, you know, and most of what we do isn't certified biodynamic. In fact, I don't think anything is certified biodynamic anymore. But what doing that taught us from a farming standpoint, and many of the practices are integral into what we do. We just now don't, you know, bury cow horns at the full moon and dance.
You know,
check in.
exactly, and that kind of is the caricature of biodynamics. But I totally agree with you. It just means I love it when people are paying attention. So back to, you know, if we were to purchase, it would be, you know, we do Russian River and Sonoma Coast Pinot Noir. I think the challenge, the real in-depth, fun, cerebral project would be Sonoma Coast, like where that's why we lease Campbell Ranch, which is out in Annapolis. It's kind of an interesting place because, you know, when you look at that area, you're expecting like this Franciscan complex of soils, but you know what? It's Goldridge. It's Goldridge.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's really weird. But the diversity of Sonoma Coast is crazy, and I'm really happy that we're finally carving up the Sonoma Coast into appropriate appellations.
Yeah. As opposed to Gap. Sonoma Coast being like half of Sonoma County.
Right. Yeah. That's right. And even, exactly. And so like Campbell Ranch is now part of the West Sonoma Coast. I love that appellation.
And it's a true appellation, you know, I mean, and that's great that it's finally there.
It's hard out there, you know, it's hard in the Russian River too. Russian River needs to be carved up too, but you know, we'll get there. We don't want to confuse the consumer, but you know, there's more soil types in Russian River than there is in all of France, right?
Yeah, you know, we had the folks on from who is it that Danny used to? No, I'm looking for a clue that Danny used to work with. Kanzler.
Oh, Alex.
And Alex talked about the neighborhoods, the idea of the Russian River neighborhoods.
That's the start, right? It's a non-binding, unofficial.
West County.
Yeah, the neighborhoods is Russian River is it's like Sonoma Coast. The more we learn, the more we know that Russian River can mean a lot of things. Sonoma Coast can mean a lot of things. So, and Lake County can mean a lot of things.
3,000. We didn't even. We got 3,000 cases of Sauvignon Blanc. That was like 50 tons.
Yeah, that we processed like. Oh my God! It was just
That's a ballsy move for a couple of Psalms.
Thank God it's like direct to press.
That was a lot of tips. I mean, even at like whatever 97 Lake County Sauvignon Blanc prices,
I think we paid $1,000 a ton.
Yeah,
but for a couple of guys with no money, and that's like you said, that's $50,000.
Yes, that was
how much did you guys each sell? Direct.
I sold it all. I sold it all.
Did you carry it at John Ash?
You think?
Like, what whites do you have by the glass?
We got the Sauvignon Blanc.
Sure, the Sauvignon Blanc is delicious. Yeah. No, we did. Yeah, you have to be careful with that too. There's a lot of we were talking about Psalms being winemakers, and you have to be careful. I was raised professionally to be very objective when it comes to wine, and you can appreciate this, Brian. There's a fine line between guiding a consumer and giving a consumer what he or she wants. So you have to play that game, and so I was always a consumer advocate. So you have to be very careful if you're a wine buyer or a somm and you're producing your own product, that you don't just think that everything that you make is number one. You can't do that. You're better off not having that cellar palate, and
Well, I think I went through 30 cases of my Roussanne at the Fairmont, but I think maybe 2 tables figured out that it was my wine.
That's good.
Because it actually said bottled by Dane Sellers. Bart helped me bottle it, and I think the conversation came up, and it wasn't even me mentioning it. It was the servers that said, "Oh yeah, by the way, your Psalm is," because my name tag said Casey.
Right.
No one knew that it was me, and I wouldn't have sold it.
You would have told them probably that it was yours if you asked first, "Do you like it?"
Right. Where if they said, do you know who makes this?
Terrible. Yeah, these people are,
I don't know what his
sketchy
name
outfits.
No, we'd like to buy a couple of cases of this. Do you know who makes it? I say, oh yeah, actually I know a guy.
Yeah,
I know.
totally.
I know that.
Take your credit card now, please.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, it wasn't. I wouldn't have put it on the list if I didn't like the wine or think that it was
Yes.
a good wine.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just to get rid of the product.
Our mutual friend David Lowenberg says it's the best wine he's ever had.
Best Roussanne he's ever had.
ever had.
Sorry, let's not get crazy.
That's labeled Roussanne.
Best Roussanne I've had this week.
Yeah, right.
I love Roussanne. It's you were joking about like Grenache and stuff. I love Roussanne. I love Grenache Blanc. I love the Rhone, right? But that's just not what we do.
Yeah.
We just had some rosé. Now we're drinking Chardonnay, and then I have a whole bunch of Pinot Noir.
We glossed over the rosé because we kind of had it for breakfast, but
it was breakfast rosé. It was a good way to refresh the palate on this dreary Sonoma day.
Are you talking like when you say refresh the palate, you mean hair of the dog?
Got the coffee and the the $10,000 I just spent for bottles out of my taste out of my mouth. Yeah.
That's a whole other show.
Great new labels and logo on these.
Thank you. We're going for a lot of things. So the brand is called Convene, and that means a lot of things. It means we like our blends. Of course, we're going to have some single vineyards here, but we focus on the blends, and so it's a confluence of vineyards. Should
I open all these bottles? Should I start opening things over here?
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. And then it's a point in the journey, as I mentioned before. It's a coming together of all the things that we've learned thus far and having a vision for the future. And then, of course, it's like here we are, 5 guys sitting here having breakfast wine, convening. So that's what it is. And so you mentioned the label. It's a we like the friendly label. Not that we're going for like a millennial or even a Gen Z, but it can't be. We didn't want to do stuffy. We wanted to have, colors. We wanted to have it be classy. And then, of course, the logo, when we sold Kosta Browne to Duckhorn in 2018, Michael Brown and I were left to our own devices. And so I did want to put my name on the label.
Hell yeah.
Right? So, I mean, I didn't want
yeah, duh.
I didn't want to out of ego.
But
I just wanted it to be a continuation, kind of a seamless transition from Kosta Browne to this.
Did you have a non-compete with them?
No. Well, we sold to private equity in 2009,
right? Controlling
interest. That's when we had the non-competes, but we stayed on,
right?
And then we had another event in 2014, stayed on, and then when Duckhorn bought us, we were out. And when you own a little bit of the company, you kind of can negotiate your way out of those non-competes. And look, Kosta Browne's in really good hands with Duckhorn. Really good. So I'm happy that they the name is in good stewardship there. But this is convened by Dan Kosta. It's not Dan Kosta. Right. It's convened by Dan Kosta. It's subtle. Yeah. So I just want people to, when it comes to wine, as you guys all know, there's so many wineries out there now, new labels that. So how do you know? Right. So there's a trust factor, right, for the consumer. And so like I said, I didn't want to put my name on there just to see it. I just wanted people to go, oh, okay, like Dan Kosta from Kosta Browne, we trust that.
Right. Well, and I would say that people aren't sure. Like, people wonder if you guys still own it, or at least involved. They might know that it was sold. And so, so it's nice to be able to say, hey, this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of that, we're drinking the Chardonnay now. I mentioned that I grew up on on Burgundies, red Burgundies, but my heart when it comes to white wines is Burgundy. When I go to Burgundy, like 80% of the wines I drink are Chardonnay. And the other, of course, is Pinot. But I decidedly have a new world palate when it comes to Pinot Noir and an old world palate when it comes to Chardonnay. So the wine, the Chardonnay goes through 100% ml. You might not guess that because it's not a it's not a butter bomb. It's not a butter bomb, and we're about 30% new wood. I love Meursault. I'm not trying to make Meursault, but I love the sensibility of Meursault. So that's kind of what we're going for. This is very youthful. This is a 21. We bottled this at the same time as the rosé, so we just bottled it last month. So it's funny because the Chardonnays, I think they like to be decanted just as much as a Pinot Noir, when they're young.
That's totally what I was thinking. I was like, something that was bottled a month ago. I want to get a glass, put it aside, come back to it at the end of the show. See what happens as it opens up.
If there's any left.
Well, I'm going to put it in a glass and hide it from all of us, especially myself and really Brian.
Really, it's Brian.
You're going to hide your Chardonnay from Brian.
So, but Dan, talk about the fact that Kosta Browne was kind of known for doing the single vineyard. I mean, and you played with some of the most iconic Pinot vineyards in California. So, and then when you and I sat down and did a tasting, the conversation was sort of more about doing some blends. So doing some blending, and specifically from Russian River and Sonoma Coast. But then it looks like you're kind of dipping back into doing some single vineyard
I opened
stuff.
the single vineyards first because that's what I pulled out.
Right.
I'm opening the Sonoma Coast blend right now.
Right.
I'm getting there. I'm not a somm like you guys. I'm opening. Also, you have really good foils.
Honestly, I'm watching you struggle with that bottle, and it's like it's hurting me.
I can imagine you on the floor at a restaurant.
It would be a disaster. It would be such a disaster. I mean, the first table that I got to would have a great time. All the rest of the tables would have.
Where did that guy go?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so it's a little bit of an enigma. Is that the right word? That we have these single vineyards here. In the future, I have a new brand called DK Grail. That's where all our single vineyards are going to live. and so these are kind of like one-offs for Convene as far as the Campbell Ranch and Sunchase Vineyard. And there's one wine that I did not bring for you guys. Did you know we make Zin?
So it's sold out on the website.
It is sold out.
But I know that was something that you and I talked about, was that you were doing a Zinfandel from Limerick Lane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's it's my little pet project. I get 2 tons a year. Back when I was at John Ashton Company, I loved those Limerick Lane Zinfandels from like the late 80s.
Yeah.
Right? And I just absolutely loved them. By the way, I love a ton of Russian River Zins. Dry Creek is obviously very famous for Zin, but I prefer Russian River, and Limerick Lane is at the northern edge of Russian River, so
It's hardly Dry Creek.
It's hardly Dry Creek,
Right.
Yeah, and if I had the bottle here, you'd notice that I put it in a Burgundy bottle for a reason. I call it a Pinot Noir lover's Zinfandel. Because I think Limerick Lane has that beautiful red fruit. It's not that big, peppery, blackberry, briary thing. It's more of a raspberry, some kind of like stone fruit too. And I just always loved it. So back when Jake Bilbro bought Limerick Lane, what was that? 12 years ago, I guess. I said, dude, I'm a bigger fan of this vineyard than you are. So please, pretty please, just peel off a couple tons for me. And he did. So we make about 90 cases a year, half of which probably goes into my own cellar. So, I mean, it's like, it's a pet project. And as you guys know, Sam, I mean, you have a lot of experience with Zinfandel, right?
Yeah.
So you know that it's a labor of love. Everyone says that Pinot Noir is the hardest grape to grow. I don't know about that. Zinfandel, especially head prune Zin, is really hard. It's hard to gauge a pick.
Yeah.
So the unevenness is crazy.
One cluster has 4 levels of ripeness.
That's right.
Green berries to completely desiccated raisins.
That's yeah.
And if you're waiting to get rid of the green berries, you've waited too long.
Right.
That's right.
And if you try and pick it without the raisins, it's totally underripe.
Right.
Oh, and then you put it in the bottle and try to sell Zinfandel in Minnesota. It doesn't work because they'll go, oh,
That's a red blend.
well, this is red. Well, where's the pink stuff?
But
Yeah.
thank God, though, I always tell people, like, Syrah was supposed to be the next big thing, Grenache the next big thing. Zinfandel, I hope, never gets popular because then it keeps the prices down, and those of us that live here in California can actually drink really good Zin and not have to pay cab prices for it.
Keep dreaming.
Well, they tried. I mean, people have tried to make, and hearing a Pinot Lover's Zinfandel, music to my ears. Let Zinfandel be the vineyard, and in different places like out there, it's gonna have some of those Pinot Noir kind of characteristics. Trying to make Pinot Noir into Cabernet. I mean, sorry. That's a whole other issue. Trying to make Zinfandel into Cabernet. Trying to make Zinfandel into Cabernet. Why Zin got the bad rap? The second bad rap. The after White Zinfandel rap. The
Well, thank
jam
God, thank
bombs.
God for White Zin, or else we wouldn't have these vines.
All those vineyards would be gone. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay, so that's
All right,
Zin that we don't have.
Let's Dan Kosta, renowned Zinfandel maker.
Next time we see him, it'll be 4 different Zinfandels.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Jake bought a beautiful property up there, didn't he? I mean, Limerick Lane is a beautiful spot.
Yeah, there's some stuff from 1910 there, and they isolate those. It's a great spot, and it's it really is kind of at the confluence of Chalk Hill and Russian River and Alexander Valley, right there, kind of Fitch Mountain area. But it's a fantastic spot, and so the reason I think the Russian River, that the Appalachian line right there in northern or southern Hillsbury, I think is really accurate because you get the fog just kind of comes up from Santa Rosa. Starts in the Petaluma Gap. People think it comes up through the Russian River. It really doesn't. It kind of comes up the Petaluma Gap, right? So it comes up, and it kind of stops right there at Limerick Lane. And so it's really nice and cool. It's not as cool as like the awesome heritage vineyards down on like Olivet Lane, like Papera and Carlisle, those guys. But it's it has the same kind of nuance as those vineyards have. Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
All right. Well, you'll have to bring the Zinfandel next time.
Did this turn into a Zinfandel show?
Well, we weren't gonna. I mean, if you listen to any, we weren't gonna let it be a Pinot show the whole time.
we can flip the script. So check this out. This is a question I've wanted to ask to a Pinot producer, because we've had people that make Merlot, and we've asked them this question, but we've never asked a Pinot producer this question. Is when the movie Sideways came out, we talked to Merlot producers about how that fucked them, but we never talked to Pinot producers about what kind of ride did you go on after that movie came out?
I don't know. It should have sold a whole bunch of Cheval Blanc.
Yeah.
Merlot.
Merlot. So we were, I think the movie came out in 2003. And so we were just kind of getting our own recognition, just starting to. So we talked about, the 80s and 90s, Sonoma County Pinot Noir, and that it just wasn't really hitting its stride yet. But then in the 90s, it did. Right. And the later 90s, I think there was with Williams Selling, with Dalinger, Rocchioli, just solid wines, style notwithstanding, it doesn't matter. The quality was really increasing systemically. What I got from Sideways is that it just made it okay. It gave permission for people to drink Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, because it was like this, it was a moving target with Pinot Noir. That's why people didn't order it. You didn't know if it was going to be shit or if it was going to be really good. Most often it was shit. But Sideways it was like, hey, here's a new generation of, whether it was the guys that I mentioned and then we get down to the Central Coast and they're doing their thing. Sea Smoke was obviously featured, and again, style notwithstanding, it's just that they were sound wines. In 2003, there was a lot to pull from, and obviously nothing against Merlot. That was just an unfortunate side effect. A kind of a douchey side effect, if you ask me. But yeah, I don't like the movie. I hated every character in that movie, but it certainly was powerful.
Well, and then at the same time, I think you guys didn't you get like a 98 or something?
We did with we talked about Alex Kanzler. We got a 98 for our 04 Kanzler. Yeah.
Shout out to Alex, who did a funny Instagram post the other day when he was sitting outside of Silicon Valley Bank
with his ATM.
I saw that.
We never even talked about that.
And thankfully, I was like, I won't mention his name, but there was a friend of mine who worked for SVB, and we banked with SVB. But I followed him over to another bank. And now I'm looking back going, wow, that was genius.
That's a good move. Good move.
I did see Alex's post. But anyway, so Kanzler, you mentioned earlier, Brian, about like Kosta Browne and like single vineyards. A lot of those vineyards, I have to say, with all humility, that we discovered them. So when you look at Kanzler and Copeland, no one made we made those. That we saw those as these Grand Cru type vineyards. So little pat on my own back, but or Michael Brown really. But that when Kiefer was kind of the same way other people were doing Kiefer. Amber Ridge, no one was doing that other than Adam Lee at Siduri. But yeah, I mean, single vineyards were Gabb's Crown, of course. Yeah. And that's a big vineyard, but we were the first to put it on a label. And we did not take that lightly. We don't just go throwing vineyards on the label. They have to be unique and good and consistently both, right? So
and obviously, you can see it in the vineyard sometimes, but when you were bringing those grapes in, what were you seeing in the cellar that said, we need to designate this. We need to put Kanzler on a label when nobody else has yet. So then you're not doing it because the name on the label is going to sell the wine. You're doing it because the wine in the bottle deserves the name on the label, right?
Yeah, that's right. We weren't doing anything for marketing. I mean, there was nothing cute about that. But we would put Kanzler in the Sonoma Coast blend. You know, you get to know the vineyards first.
Yeah.
The only vineyard that we kind of went straight to, single vineyard, was Copeland, which is Olivet Lane, or Olivet Road. And it was like it's 5 acres, 5.5 acres, something like that. And it was all 667, so just one clone, which is interesting. But it was a powerful wine. It's not a wine that I probably would make today, you know, just as my palate evolves, because 667, relatively warm area for Pinot Noir. It was just like generous and fruit driven and really good, but it stood out. You know, it stood out in a certain style, as did Kanzler. Kanzler, was a little bit more diverse. 667, 115, 828. I think there was a little 828. But you know, that was a cooler area. And we just, you know, you taste them in barrels, you know. I mean, you taste them in barrels, you go, geez, this is like just unique. And back then, I would say, you know, as a blanket statement, we kind of vinified the wines very similar, so that we figured that, we'll make the wines the same, and that way the vineyards speak a little bit more. I think that was not the correct approach. It worked for us, but you have Sunchase and Campbell Ranch in front of you. Well,
Yes, they're
very different. They don't want to be made the same.
You poured your glass out, obviously
I'm
ready for what should we go first?
Well, I think since there's an outlier here, which is the Russian River, everything else is Sonoma Coast. So let's do the Russian River first.
And Dan, that style of wines that was being made, the style of Pinot that was being made back then in early 2000s was probably a little bit different than you're doing now too, which was, I mean, you guys were getting rewarded for bigger wines.
Yeah, and sometimes you make the wine, and sometimes the wine makes you. So, you know, back then in 2003, 2004, hot. Yeah. And we didn't have a lot of the resources to make a quick pick call, right? So there were a lot of, you know, golf balls out there, dimples on the, you know, so we had some big wines. We were bringing these things in at, you know, 27, you know, and not all of them, of course, but it's just an example. But, you know, we kind of got typecasted, I guess, or pigeonholed, whatever you want to call it, into a certain style, because that Wine Spectator picked up, especially in 04. It was like, wow, this is something different, right? And that's what people like, whether it's, you know, back then, I think that the American palate was still a teenager, right? We hadn't really evolved. So we like big, powerful stuff, big cabs, big oaky, buttery Chardonnays. Yeah. And then along comes this Kosta Browne Pinot Noir, which is like, bam, you know, something different in the Pinot Noir world. So it certainly stood out, somewhat by accident. You know, Michael Brown always used to say he just wants to make a delicious beverage, which those wines were. As we evolve, all of us sitting around the table, we've been in the business for a long time. Our palates change, right? So Convene is a manifestation of that evolution. I love those times. When you're young, you love hedonism, right? And as you get a little bit older, you want a little bit of thought. And I used the word tension earlier. That's kind of what, you know, you don't seek, you don't just engineer tension, but you do, you know, find vineyards that are on the cusp of deliciousness and cerebral, right? To where that to me is what tension is.
I mean, I think it's interesting the way you said that. You know, you can't engineer tension, because when you do, otherwise, like trying to add acid or something, it usually stands out, right? It stands out like a sore thumb. You do have to be thoughtful, and you have to be able to identify it early on, right? Yeah. Early on in the vineyard selection and the winemaking.
Yeah, it's. I mean, thankfully, that's almost cliche at this point, right?
Right.
We're good wine's made in the vineyard.
Right.
I mean, it's so true. That being said, we kind of the blends are fun. They're winemaker wines because you do have your hands in it a little bit. But with that said, we tend to let the vineyards be the painting, right? So in other words, like the oak, it needs to be the frame, can't be part of the painting. And to those ends, we sometimes would prefer maybe, especially in Russian River, where it's tends to be fleshier wines. We will put, I think on this one we did about 10% whole cluster. I'd rather get the tension and the structure from the vine itself than the oak. And now I don't want the wine tasting like stems. I do not like that. But, it's just like a good chef. It's like, oh, man, you have this dish. It's like, well, what is that? You can't really figure it out because it's subtle. That to me is what whole cluster. It's a good tool if it's used deftly.
Yeah. And you'll do whole cluster uncrushed, or you do like destem.
It's like a carbonic.
Add some, so you will do.
Yeah, it's more of like a little bit of carbonic. Yeah, we don't bust it up. We don't do like a pigillage. Right. Yeah. Well, maybe we do. I don't. No, I'm kidding.
So let's talk about winemaking. So who are you working with right now? Who's your winemaker?
Shane Finley and I work together doing the wines. He's there every day.
Shane used to work for Adam, right?
Shane used to work for me and Michael. So Shane started at Kosta Browne in 2006.
Okay.
You might be thinking of Ryan Zapaltis.
Yeah, maybe so.
And
yeah.
they're buddies. Shane and Ryan are buddies, and Ryan is now the winemaker at Copan.
Okay.
Yeah. Who did work for Adam forever.
Yeah, okay.
So, but they're kind of cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Shane worked in the Rhone Valley and Australia for Torbeck, and then he started with us in 2006, and then he was a winemaker at Linmar. And he was my winemaker for Alden Alley, which was just a small little brand that I had since 2013. And now, he's with me on Convene and everything else. So there's we've been together for, almost 20 years. And there's a point there that, this is just because Shane and I have been working together for a long time. It doesn't mean that this is like, actually, it means the opposite. It's not Kosta Browne 2.0. This is the way that I look at the relationship with me and Shane is not necessarily about style. It's about us speaking the same language, right? So we communicate very well when it comes to vineyard sourcing, when it comes to overall vision on the wines, and then the execution I leave to Shane.
And so who was making the wine when you first started? Was it you making the wines initially?
You're talking about Kosta Browne?
Yeah.
So Michael and I made the first wines together, and then, you don't need that redundancy. So Michael, he focused on the winemaking, and then me with, being a somm and, being out in the public a little bit more, I took on the sales and marketing stuff, which is good. I mean, you can change it up. Winemaking is 90% set up and clean up, and it's like, all right, but that's fine. I'll show up for the 10%. No, I do like it. You have to. I call myself a vintner, and I'll call Shane a winemaker. Because I like to get in there. You need to be close to the wines. You need to be close to the vineyards. You got to get your hands dirty, but I'm not racking barrels. Yeah. Actually, Shane's not either. We don't rack.
Nobody's racking barrels.
But you know what I mean. I mean, Shane's got the dirty fingernails for sure.
Where are you guys making the wines now?
We're at Vinify. We're doing a custom crush. Again, this goes back to the model that we did with Kosta Browne. We have a hospitality area, which is the pretty face of the thing. It's up at Bacchus Landing in Healdsburg, and it's awesome. It's wonderful. This model, we don't need the bells and whistles of our own winery. It doesn't make sense. Even if we I mean, we do. We're pretty well financed, but we don't think that's a good investment. We'd rather, when the time comes, invest in vineyards.
Again, with the vineyards.
Yeah. Well, there's vineyards for, to be vertically integrated, right? So from soup to nuts, but it's also a real estate play, of course. I mean, God's not making more vineyard land in Sonoma County.
Yeah, so your neighbors...
I think actually, some of it is probably washing down the Russian River as we speak.
Right. And to listen to the county supervisor's report today, it's not going to be any easier to do a winery anywhere.
No,
Can't
exactly.
wait till Susan Gorin's gone.
Yeah, she's your valley.
Yeah. We know.
Yeah.
We know.
We've got some pretty pro business people where we are.
Thank God.
In Healdsburg and somewhat in the 5th district with in the Russian River Valley. But yeah, it's really tough to start those things, which is why I really wanted to focus on the hospitality spot in Healdsburg. Because, and by the way, we are going old school. We're not charging for our tastings, and we're not doing this appointment only thing. Can you imagine showing up in Sonoma County? And, Brian, you worked at Sonoma Mission Inn. You sign it, you get to your hotel room, and you want to go wine tasting, and then they say, "Well, no, you can't because you don't have an appointment, and it's $100 and blah blah blah." That rubs me the wrong way. So we have a flight that's complimentary. We do have a premium flight that we do charge for, but if you come in, it's like, dude, all I want to do is get wine in people's glass.
Our friend Allison Smith Story is in that same complex.
She is. Yeah, she's awesome.
So is everyone doing the same model, or are you guys the ones that aren't charging?
They might be mad at me.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. That deserves one of these.
I just didn't. We started there almost 2 years ago, and we had the whole, we did charge for a flight, this, that, the other. And that's not hospitality to me. And I don't want to, tell other people what to do. I just know what felt right for us is trial. It's just, you got here, you got to the tasting room. It's not all bachelorette parties that come in and just drink. That's not the way it is. People buy. People come in, they just want to taste it, and I just want to make it a lot easier for them to do that.
Yeah. But fair enough, you also have the funding though to be able to do that. Whereas some people maybe
that doesn't come into play. I mean, the theory is that
it's not part of the
give them a taste, they'll buy the bottle. Right. But if you charge a bottle price for a taste, then they figure they already gave you their money.
Yeah.
As a tourist, we always used to buy at least a bottle anytime anybody gave us a taste. At least. I mean, it's just the thing you want to do.
Whether it's guilt or not.
Yeah, quite frankly, I don't think I've left anywhere without a bottle.
No, I haven't. And there's just a certain sensibility now to where it's not people just going out and getting drunk. It just doesn't happen. I don't see it. People, it's like you walk onto a car lot because you're interested in the car. No. You walk into a tasting room because you're interested to buy wine. No. And that's what I see. I know it's very anecdotal, and I'll give you some more, concrete metrics soon. But the way I see it is, our job is not to make people feel good about Convene. Our job is to make people feel good about themselves, right? We're in the entertainment business. This is experiential. So step one is to not put speed bumps out there for people to get wine in their glass.
But you've always thought that way. You even thought about the restaurant business, that it was theater,
Of course.
Yeah.
Everything's theater, right? But
all the world's a stage.
All the world's a stage. Are you a Rush fan?
I think Shakespeare said that first.
Yes, he did, but I went straight to Geddy Lee.
And just the thought of Sam at a Rush concert, that's hard to wrap my head around.
It's one of those concerts where I feel like everybody looks like a security guard. That's what I felt like when I went to Metallica. I was like, can I smoke a bowl? No, that's a security guard. No,
I got kicked out of a Rush concert for exactly that. Yeah, I was like up front. And we happened, Michael and I went up. They have an intermission for some reason. And so Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson are like big wine guys. So so we kind of went up and met them and stuff. But the second half of the show was a little different because I didn't have to behave myself. So I got escorted out right at the last song. They took a golf cart to my car where someone else. I'm like, oh, thanks.
But I wanted to stay for the last song.
Wasn't exactly sure where my car was, so
Yeah,
thank you.
exactly. Yeah.
So what is your what do you find numbers wise as far as direct to consumer and people? Obviously you probably have a wine club,
Yeah.
And how much are you selling to restaurants? And
Well, we can certainly. I mean, I'm just thrilled to be here talking with you guys about this. We could talk all day about that because it's not the old days. It's not Kosta Browne. There's so many people out there now, vying for that direct to consumer, whether it's a wine club or this, that, the other. And quite frankly, we're in the same boat. I mean, we're lucky because we hit the ground running as far as people signing up for our list and buying direct. But what's really important for me for a new brand, I mentioned trial. For getting it into people's glasses, well, the best way to do that is in restaurants. So one of the best ways, I should say. But so we're at about 50-50 right now. It's very important. It'll grow to probably, I'm predicting 80% direct.
Well, as soon as people
But it
find out
takes-
you got a free tasting, they're going to come.
Well, there you go, right? Yeah.
And you were on our podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The winemaker's bump. Sonoma Coast blend first before we go into the single vineyard.
Sonoma Coast blend. So, So Sonoma Coast, we have these two single vineyards here, Sunchase and Campbell. Well, that's pretty much what the blend is for the Sonoma Coast. It comes from those two vineyards, a little bit of Gap's Crown, which is also Petaluma Gap, but for the most part, this is highly influenced by Campbell Ranch. And what Campbell Ranch, and we can talk about the Campbell when we taste it, but the Campbell Ranch is, it's got those tertiary flavors, right? It's not just generous stone fruit. It's got nice fruit, but it has a little crunchiness to it and a little bit of earthiness to it.
It smells like it's got a little crunchy and earthy to it.
Yeah.
what do people? I'm still baffled by the crunchy thing. Crunchy red fruit.
So
You have beautiful descriptions, by the way, on your wines. I don't know who's doing them, but they're very. They paint a picture. Let's put it that way. But crunchy.
AI.
AI,
please.
Chat.
I'm not that
GPT.
advanced.
But what does that mean? The crunchy fruit.
I'll start with rhubarb.
Okay.
Not that this is a terribly rhubarb wine, but like crunchy fruit to me is like take whatever fruit you want and unripen it just a little bit.
Okay.
That's great.
Totally.
That's a great
The-
descriptor.
The taste that evokes the feeling of biting into a plum that's not quite right.
I was gonna say plum. I like
Yeah.
it's hard
When
to
I
get
think of it, when you pick one of those like Santa Rosa plums,
Mm-hmm.
and you got
The ones that you find on like the street, those plums that
oh
grow
yeah
on the street, those red
man,
leaf.
totally.
yeah.
They're all over my neighborhood. My sister-in-law's obsessed with them, and every year she comes right around the 4th of July, and we go through the whole neighborhood gleaning and make it's like the best jam. But when you get those that aren't quite, the mid-June one as opposed to the 4th of July one, where it still has
Yeah,
some
they'll
bite
give you-
to it.
and you
Yeah,
get a
the-
little astringency from the skin, and then you get the
Yes.
sweetness from the
Totally.
flesh.
The unripe red Zinfandel berry, right?
Right.
The undippled. I mean, it's got fruit. It's fleshy. It snaps in your mouth.
It's the snap.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
about that snap.
Yeah.
When a wine, and it's not necessarily a ripeness discussion when it comes to wine. When a wine makes you have that feeling of that snap, and that comes from a lot of things. It's the fruit, but it's acid, it's tannin. Maybe it's something else in the winemaking that'll help you.
I mean, those are
achieve that feeling.
Those are so complementary, but so different.
Yeah, that's why we do them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if there was redundancy, you have to be careful. By the way, you like the way Chardonnay or the Russian River and the Sonoma Coast. I know it's hard on the podcast, but there's a little line on the back, and that's the river, and then this is the coast here. So when I'm at a tasting, and this is facing the customer, I know exactly.
You know which one.
I don't have to like look at because I can't read anyway. So I just look at the design. But yeah, the juxtaposition is very important. So the Russian River Valley, as I mentioned, kind of has this generous kind of, and I'm talking about typicity, not just ours. But what we wanted to do with the Russian River is take that generosity and just kind of, just because you have ripe flavors doesn't mean you need to have a ripe wine, right? So that was my approach with the Russian River. Then you get to Sonoma Coast and it gets more to that tension, right? Where there is like a pine needle crunchiness to it, which is more, I think it's just thought provoking. I just poured myself the Sunchase vineyard. Sunchase to me, it's kind of similar to Gap's Crown. It's in the same neighborhood, that Penn Grove area, at the base of Sonoma Mountain, actually on the bench of Sonoma Mountain. This is the last time we bottled this the Sunchase. We just kind of moved on from it, but the Petaluma Gap, as everyone here knows, is sometimes a lot cooler. It's the first line of the fog when it comes in July and August, September, or June, July, August. So it actually is a cooler spot down there than the Campbell Ranch, which is 5 miles from the ocean. Right? Crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it an elevation related thing also?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The Campbell, the Sunchase is just probably, 200 feet, something like that. But it's kind of like similar to Gap's Crown in that it's at the benchland. So it's like, that's where the fog just hits like a water hitting a reservoir, right? Boom, hits and it just leaves at noon the next day. Right. So it's just kind of drenched and it's windier. So, as you know, that affects your growth, or your growing season.
Yep.
Yeah.
Closes up those leaf pores.
Exactly.
The Sunchase is great. I love this feel. Yeah.
I think it's pretty typical.
So aromatically distinct too.
Mm-hmm. Again, I think you find that the Sonoma Coast wines have just like some savory notes to it, which I don't want to say it's the antithesis of what Kosta Browne was, but it's just it's another layer, right? It's a different. I'll say different. Yeah, it is a different approach, but it's not a revolution. It's an evolution, right?
Well, I've heard you have this conversation. I think it was with Adam, where it was you're not running away from something, you're running to something, which is
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. That's exactly what that is. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not trying to make wines that are distinctly different from Kosta Browne. You're making wines that you want to make now.
Yes, and we use the word engineering. We're not engineering the wine. This is I don't have to do this project. I want to do this project, and it's very genuine. You have to make wine that reflects where you are in life. If you don't, then there's no soul to the wine.
That's good.
And so, are you going to continue to make the Zinfandel?
You know what? It was a funny conversation. I of all people, since it was my pet project, I got together with my team. I said, guys, is this thing a distraction for you? Because I just don't know what to do. Where does this Zinfandel fit? And they're like, dude, that's your part of your story. You wanted to do Zinfandel. This is your passion. Who cares? So I'm like, oh my God, you guys are right. And look, we just
you can all keep your jobs.
Yeah, that's right. And you know what? I know that we only make 90 cases of it, but it sold out in 24 hours. Wow. A couple weeks ago. And
right.
So it's like, but where's mine?
Yeah. But I can see that. I can see.
I think I'm gonna need another half a ton.
Yeah.
Not to sell.
Exactly.
Yeah. To put into my cellar.
Did you hold any back?
It's a point of contention because I have like people who like to sell wine,
yeah,
and I like to hold wine back. We over.
This is never a conversation that ever happens around here, is it, Brian?
No, not at all.
It's a good problem to have.
But I can see that. It's nice that you opened up that conversation with them, because especially when you're doing Chardonnay and Pinot, and it's a discussion about Burgundy and the history of those grapes, and then to have a Zinfandel in the lineup. But I think if you make it a fun thing for the wine club members to have access to, that, hey, by the way, we do this Zinfandel.
It's kind of like a little Easter egg.
Totally. Totally. And that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fun. I was always went to the school of narrow your scope and do one thing well, or do two things well with Chardonnay and Pinot. Yeah. And that's why I brought up that conversation. I'm like, is this a distraction? And the answer was no. So,
but didn't you guys keep your employees sort of interested at Kosta Browne? Didn't you let them make one red and one white a year from different
You have
spots?
definitely done your homework. Yeah, we
They
did.
kind of they
But
weren't.
it went back to Lake County, Tempranillo, the 1 year. Yeah. Tempranillo, Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin, Riesling from Anderson Valley. Yes, and it was really fun to do. When
those
you are
commercially?
narrow casting,
you never sold them, right? It was just
No.
for them to play around
No.
with.
Yeah.
I know there's bottles floating out there, but yeah, but it was just to keep them interested and to keep them curious. And
well, first of all, you get away from cellar palate a little bit, and then when you are only focusing on Pinot Noir with a little bit of Chardonnay, you kind of have the blinders on. And so you always have to diversify, or at least, see what's out there. And that's why it's very helpful to take staff to Burgundy, or to, just to see what everyone else is doing.
yeah, Sam.
Oh, yeah. Or Croatia.
I think we're gonna get to Nîmes, maybe.
Okay, Nîmes.
Marseille.
Good.
And then get back on the boat.
I think we know someone in Nîmes that we might be able to stay at their house. Is that what you're saying?
Crash in Isabel's backyard. All right.
If you can get there.
Yeah, exactly. If you can find it.
All right, let's try the last.
All right, so Campbell Ranch.
I gotta catch up. Oh no, I have the Sun Chaser. That's right. Okay.
You are. Oh, see, I'm already on Campbell Ranch.
I'm still just waiting for the Zin, man.
I know. I feel so bad. I feel so bad for myself that I didn't bring it. You want to talk? Hey, listen. You see what's going on here? There's 4 corks and 1 diem cork.
One of these things doesn't look like the other.
And this is from the Chardonnay.
Right.
Everything is going to this now.
You're going to DM.
I love these corks. I'm looking at the corks now.
Those look like some nice corks.
They're
too.
beautiful corks. But guess what? Whatever other industry allows for this amount of failure, if let's call it 1 to 5%. I mean, it's ridiculous. So the DM that's where we're going. It's not as pretty, but I don't care anymore.
Okay, so it's not a price thing for you. It specifically has to do with
TCA. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. If I get pissed off when I get a corked bottle of my own wine, because for every bottle that I open that's corked, holy shit, someone else is going to get it who might not know what corkiness is, and they just don't they say, oh, well, this Convene sucks. Yeah. Because of the damn cork.
Have you thought about doing screw cap on the Russian River and Sonoma coast?
I do screw cap on the rosé because I think that I like screw cap for wines that are meant to be consumed immediately, and they're great for when you're driving.
Yeah, I've had on it.
The deadpan, the straight face,
right? But
it's easier to put a straw in the bottle.
This was something that happened at Hospice Tyrone that Ian Blessing, a friend of ours, him and I had to open up, 5 cases of. It was for the tasting in the morning, and I was opening up 5 cases of something with cork. He was opening up 5 cases of an Australian Shiraz. I think it was like an O2, and he had all screw caps, and he's sitting there, pap, 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 pap. Every one he's putting up on the table as fine, and I'm popping corks. Yeah. And I'm like every 4th or 5th bottle, I'm like, a little bit different.
Total bottle variation.
But again, it wasn't corkiness. It was just variation.
There was variations.
Which is not good either, really.
No, but I was surprised at the screw cap that this was 13, 14 years in.
Yeah, because this was the 2016 hospice. Yeah,
in bottle, screw cap, every single wine.
The only thing I'm a little bit hesitant for the screw caps on the reds is reduction.
Right.
You know, I like the way that corks breathe, and I know that you can get certain levels of what's the word I'm looking for,
of the plastic liner.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what all of Adam Lee's new brand, the Clarice wines.
Siduri was all that too.
And you know, these are not inexpensive wines.
No.
And he's, you know, he has the highest end or whatever of the plastic liner and the screw cap that allows the.
I mean, his
winemaking
winemaking is not reductive, so okay, that's a good start. Right. I mean, but there's some people that do reductive winemaking and then they put a screw cap on. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, this thing smells like a Heineken.
Right. If it's gonna go, it's really gonna go.
Yeah. So, those are my little philosophies. Never say never, but I was going kicking and screaming with the DM because I'm kind of a marketing kind of guy, but I'm thrilled with the success of it, and you just sleep easier at night.
What do you think of cans and boxes coming up?
You talk about reduction, right? So, look, we're all men of a certain age here, save for Sam.
Approaching certain ages.
So basically, what we're talking about is a marketing towards a generation. Let's call them Gen Z. Which is what's the number? 90% of all wines are consumed the day it's purchased. Right. Is that the number?
45 minutes.
Average bottles. Yeah.
It's 8 hours. Now.
8 hours
is
from
average purchase to consumption.
Right. So, well, that's just because you order it online in the morning and it's delivered to your house in the afternoon.
Right? That's right. So I mean, that's a real thing. So can is accessible. I prefer to not drink wine out of a can. It just doesn't go well with me. I think personally, you know, the bladder, the box, probably pretty good way to go. And again, it comes back down to like wine that is meant, like our rosé, for example. We have a screw cap. Would that be good in the bladder? Probably. Right. Probably.
I've tasted some awesome wines in Bordeaux in boxes.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah. You know what's really good is the keg. I did a couple keg things.
Right.
That's totally anaerobic. You use I guess CO2, right?
Or nitrogen.
And it works phenomenally. I mean, you can have a wine that's 4 months in a keg, on tap, and it's great.
Well, now you don't even have to worry about the coming and going of the keg either, because Sam does his wines in
disposable ones,
throw them in the recycling bin.
Yeah. So you like those?
It's a great way for a buy the glass program to, you don't have any bottling expenses. Literally, it's like you sit there and you fill a keg with a thing out of the tank. You don't pay a truck. You don't have a bottle. You don't have a label. You don't have a cork or a screw cap or a DM and
you just have to get people to buy the systems.
Yeah. Well, you find the places, the Fairmont has one, and then you have customers who aren't going to necessarily buy the $170 bottle of our wine that's on the list there because they know they can get it for half that price from us, but they're going to sit at the pool and be like, I could drink anything here, but I know this.
That's right.
And so it's great. It's great to have people out there, or they go, oh well, I'll try the 16600 rosé, and they go, this is really good. How do I get more? And so just it's that same thing that you just said. It's how do you get the wine into the glass so people taste it, because that's the only way you sell it. And the keg at a poolside bar?
Oh, come on.
Yeah, all day long.
If I had a pool, it'd be at my pool.
Right?
Yeah.
The beverage people in Santa Rosa, they have these great little kegerators. We used to have one.
Do they really? Little jockey boxes?
This Campbell Ranch is spectacular.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a reason we leased that one.
It is. hits all the notes of, and even when I think of like what a Kosta Browne is and was, it has the richness, it has the savory, it still has some crunch and some acid, and
What are these clones, Dan?
So we get 4 or 5 different blocks from Campbell Ranch. It's mainly 115, a little bit of 667, and then there's this block 13, which is kind of a Massal block. So there's 115, 667, 828, that's 777, and 23. So yeah, it's Dijon basically. We on some of the Russian River stuff, we get more into like a Swan and Calera. But as far as the Sonoma Coast goes, we're pretty much Dijon clones.
So, what talking about Gen Z, or how has marketing changed for you with this brand? Like, do you have a marketing department? Do you have anyone that does your?
I have a great
social
gal. Her name is Sarah Sorgel.
Yeah.
And she is my rock when it comes to that. And she is younger. She's I can't say how old she is, but let's just say she's not in her 40s.
Yeah.
And she's just so bright and so in tune with everything. And she really helped us design this label during COVID. We had a lot of time to do this.
Yeah.
And so the brand itself, you'll notice if you go out and buy 12 different bottles of Pinot Noir, for example, 11 of them are going to have a red foil, right? So we wanted to get away from that. I'm a big blue guy. There's a very coastally influenced brand. So you'll see there's blue all over the place, and that's for the coast. And then you see in our little tapestry that that's earth also. So it's I think blue is a very friendly color. And we do that on purpose, because we don't want to be a stodgy, your dad's wine label, right? We just don't want to do that. Now, that's just physical stuff, but obviously social is a big part, and I don't do social media, but so Sarah does it for us, which is huge. And it's hard to apply a metric to social, other than likes and followers, but it's huge. I mean, who goes to a website anymore, right?
Not first, anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is all about, and websites are new; they become obsolete. So social is huge. Basically, hire younger people for you have to. Everything's moving so fast. I'm 51. I feel like a dinosaur.
But are you still out selling the wine? Or are you still traveling?
Oh yeah. I like telling the stories. Yeah, it's still fun, and people love it. I don't want to do a whole bunch of proxy marketing stuff like that. It's hard to clone me, but I will get out there as much as possible.
Yeah. And what is your total case production for?
We're at about like 6,000 cases total.
Okay.
Yeah. So
enough to keep everybody busy.
Enough to keep everybody busy, and not too much to worry about it.
Right. Only twice as much as you made at your Sauvignon Blanc.
Exactly. Well, that's a good way to come back full circle.
All right, now I want to tell everyone, if they're local and they want to come try these wines, April 26th at the Fairmont, you'll be doing a winemaker dinner.
Yes.
I'm going to see you there either way. I might be eating.
Thank you for setting that one up, man.
Oh yeah, sure. No, I might be eating dinner, but I might also be emceeing the event.
Oh, beautiful. How about both?
Just can't get away, can you?
I can't drink wine and MC at the same time because it'll get ugly real
I
fast.
can only MC when I'm drinking wine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But if you just call the Fairmont Sonoma Mission Inn, and they'll direct you to Adrian, and she'll take your credit card information. And it's I think it's only 28 people.
Yeah, it's small. It's small.
Yeah. Are you bringing someone? You coming by yourself?
I better be bringing my wife.
Okay.
Right?
So then there is 28 seats available.
And then the tasting room's open how many days a week?
We're open Thursday through Monday. So we're closed on Tuesday, Wednesdays, but yeah, like I mentioned, come on in. Don't, be spontaneous. Come in, have some wine. Don't make an appointment. We won't charge you.
I wonder.
And this is at Bacchus.
This is at Bacchus Landing, which is on West Side Road, just outside of the square in Hillsborough.
And
how many wineries are left in tasting rooms are left in Sonoma County that have a free tasting flight? That even would give you a free splash if you walked in.
I wouldn't know where to start.
Maybe people come in here and...
Hey, I did it the other day.
Yeah, no, if somebody says they come in and they're like, hey, I heard about your Grenache. I heard about this. I heard about that.
Yeah.
I think Imagery does.
Imagery still does?
Yeah. You can walk in and get a...
No,
No?
probably get a taste of something that's not made in Sonoma County. But
Lake County?
no, that's you know what? That company won't even pay for that fruit.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, you know what?
Two former Benziger employees.
If they want to join the vintners and growers, we'd love to have them be part of it, and we'd be happy to
More
help.
shots
them out
fired. It's getting real.
Just saw the wine group part of this bag when I walked in. I didn't really, I saw the logo. Took me a while to realize that was a D and a K. I just saw wine group. I'm like,
This is where
maybe something happened. that I didn't-
Subtlety is not your forte, huh?
Apparently not. Oh, man. This episode brought to you by Cupcake.
Got real quiet over there real quick. Well, Dan, thank you very much for coming and sharing the wines. I mean, obviously, I'm a fan. I put two of the wines on at the Fairmont, and they are. They've actually thanked me since I left for bringing the wines on because
Awesome.
it's doing really well.
That's great. Thank you.
And I'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Always fun to talk about this stuff, guys. It never gets old. So this is fun.
Killer. Love the evolution.
Yeah.
Thank you.
These are
Thank you.
fun wines.
Yeah.
The Campbell Ranch.
I'm definitely a
sitting on
sun
my
chase
palate.
over Campbell Ranch.
Oh, you're a sun
myself.
chaser.
Yeah.
That's why we make them both. It's
Yeah.
it's not a competition.
Well,
you
sun-
know?
and that vineyard's probably just a couple miles from your house, up over the hill,
Over the hill and through
over,
the woods.
through the dale, and to Pengrove we'll go.
Over the hill through, yeah.
Yeah, I will actually drive by it on my way home. Yeah. Shout outs for you guys. What do you want to talk about?
Is there anything else to talk about besides?
Well, is this going to come out after April 1st?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be
think so. I think we're
before. So,
Okay.
so we do have an event coming up at the Fairmont.
If you haven't heard,
If you haven't heard,
if you don't already have tickets,
There won't be any Pinot Noir or Chardonnay.
there will not
no,
be any Pinot Noir and Chardonnay.
doing a
Be
tasting.
mostly
so,
Grenache.
Cheval Blanc.
Yes. Dan's bringing his Cheval Blanc collection.
Dan will have 6 Cheval Blancs in Magnum.
Get a ticket.
We're doing a tasting of Rossi Ranch, so organically farmed vineyard, Rossi Ranch. I don't know. What do we have? 12 different
there's 12
winemakers
wineries.
and brands.
There's 16600 and Auditat, so there's 2.
Yeah.
Dane Cellars,
Yep. Jean de Bois,
Jean de Bois,
Wine XYZ, or
right? Artache.
yeah, Mavon,
Artie Johnson's brand.
Tony Biaggi's
Tony-
new brand,
Under the Hourglass logo.
Yep.
Did we say Sosi yet?
Sosi.
Mayo.
Mayo.
Rosemary Cake Breads Gallica.
Yep.
I think
It's got to be more.
It's gotta-
Francois.
Francois.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just throwing
Jacques,
people in. I'm just
Pierre,
throwing people in there.
I think we're forgetting somebody.
Yeah. But we're going to have a lot of wines. We're going to do.
Oh, Abbott's Passage.
Oh, thank you. Shout
Right.
out Kitty Bunchu.
Yeah.
And I heard from Dave Hayes last night.
Dave Hayes is coming.
He's coming. So I'm having lunch with him
Oh, good.
on Monday at the Fig. If you guys want to tag along.
I think I will be. We're also, because we're crazy, the day after April 2nd,
Oh, yeah.
we're having Vinyl Sunday. Just old school, old fashioned Vinyl Sunday at the tasting house. Got some tacos.
Best
got some-
tacos.
The
in
best
Sonoma.
tacos. I know. Is it Friday yet?
Yeah.
Little bluegrass duo playing music. Just gonna hang out. If you're a Phil Setme member, you can pick up your shipment that day. Hopefully that got all the labels.
Yeah.
There's only one we're waiting for.
I mean,
A couple of hoops to jump through before then, but
I have some labels that I'm waiting on myself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 3 weeks is gonna somehow become
Yeah.
4 days.
Right.
So on point being on Monday, April 3rd, I'm going to be asleep. It's gonna be a long weekend.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a great long weekend.
Well, and also that night at the Fairmont, so that April 1st, we're doing the tasting, whites during the day, rosé lunch, reds in the afternoon, and then there will be live music out at the food truck.
Well, and also I think a bunch of people who get fruit from Rossi Ranch that isn't one of the Rhones are bringing wine.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of other wine, and the rosé. It's going to be
a long day.
It's going to be a long day.
Yeah. But a fun day.
But I was looking. You have like the Taste of Washington is going on right now that Elaine is at. You see these things. I don't know if like a single vineyard open to the public, multi-winery tasting like this. You don't see this happening anywhere else. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm looking everywhere. Who else is doing
We'll have this conversation when it's over and re-examine it.
If there's a reason why that doesn't happen, there's a reason why people don't do this crazy.
We're going to have a great time.
Yes.
You guys are going to need portable spit cups.
You need those ones like hanging around your neck like you're at. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
We don't want to see any of those people at the event.
No.
Yeah, we've been to the San Francisco Chronicle Wine Competition.
Right, exactly.
And
You can
Zap.
you can see results of that in our social media.
Dan, you said you're not a social guy, but do you want to tell people how to get in touch with you or get a hold of some of these wines?
You can do. The website is dkconvene.com. And of course, there's Bacchus Landing, and Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff.
Great restaurants there too, so you can come do a tasting.
Yeah, absolutely. We are, as you mentioned, at the Fairmont, or of course at John Ash and Company, all the places the usual suspects, man. We are there. This is our backyard, so it's restaurants are alive and kicking, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Where were you in the restaurant business?
I was at John Ash and Company. I actually I'm a really good friend of mine who just passed last week, John Bacchini. He used to own the Villa restaurant, and he gave me my first job when I was 14. And then I went to work in high school at Chateau Souverain, and Gary Danko was the chef there. So that was a hell of an experience. Yeah. And then of course John Ash, and then we started fermenting grape juice. Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing at the Villa anymore.
No, they just closed last year.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Someone ought to get that place.
It's a beautiful
make it
view.
into a cool spot.
Yeah, it's a great spot. It needs a little work.
Yeah, and it might have had a checkered past over the past 2 decades.
Not when I was there.
Flavor.
Okay, decade. Sorry.
It's all about the stories, Bart.
Couple kitchen fires, right?
All right, guys. We'll look forward to talking to you next week. If you want to get some tickets for our Rossi Ranch event, you can just call us.
It's on the website. There's an Eventbrite if you're feeling
through Eventbrite. And then if you want to see Dan at the Fairmont, just call the Fairmont. Ask for Adrian.
Giddy up.
Yep.
Right on.
Thanks, guys.
Nice wine, Stan. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.